Mercedes did not just reveal why their car failed. They revealed why their own machine may be turning speed into self-destruction. Because this is no longer one unlucky retirement. Mercedes has been forced to explain costly did-not finishes, very painful reliability problems, and race-ending failures involving both George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. That is the kind of pattern that terrifies a championship team. A fast car can fight Ferrari. A fast car can fight Red Bull. A fast car can fight McLaren. But a fast car that cannot survive, fights itself first. And that is the nightmare Mercedes is facing now. Every warning light becomes suspicious. Every garage delay becomes a clue. Every radio message feels heavier. Every rival starts believing the same thing. Mercedes may have pace, but do they have control? Because if the car keeps braking under pressure, Russell and Antonelli do not just lose points. They lose trust. Costly retirements. Very painful reliability problems. Mercedes revealing conclusions. Drivers left with nothing after races they could have saved. And now the biggest question is not whether Mercedes can build a fast Formula One car. It is whether they can stop that car from destroying its own championship before the rivals even get the chance. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why Mercedes' reliability problem feels so dangerous, you have to understand what a team actually loses when a car fails. It is not only the race. It is the certainty that the whole operation is built on. Mercedes can spend hundreds of hours preparing for one Grand Prix. The engineers can study every temperature window. The strategists can simulate every safety car possibility. The mechanics can prepare every component with precision. The drivers can arrive knowing where to attack, where to save tires, where to manage energy, and where the race may be won or lost. But all of that depends on one basic promise. The car has to reach the finish. Without that, everything collapses. A Formula One team can survive a slow weekend. It can explain a poor qualifying session. It can recover from a strategy call that did not work. It can even accept being beaten by a rival with more pace, because at least that gives the team a clear target. But when the car retires, the target becomes harder to see. Was it the part? Was it the cooling? Was it the load? Was it the way the car was being pushed? Was it one isolated failure, or the beginning of a bigger reliability pattern? That is why the Mercedes story is so uncomfortable. The source points to costly did-not finishes, very painful reliability problems, and recent retirements involving George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Those words matter because they show the issue was not harmless. It cost results. It caused pain inside the team. It forced Mercedes to reveal conclusions instead of simply moving on. That tells you the problem had weight. And when a reliability problem has weight, it becomes part of the championship. Because championships are not only won by the fastest car on the perfect day. They are won by the car that survives the imperfect ones. That is where Mercedes has to be worried. Russell and Antonelli do not need a car that only looks good in clean air, in perfect temperatures, on the ideal strategy. They need a car that can survive the ugly races too. The races with traffic. The races with heat. The races where the tires are stressed. The races where the team has to push for longer than expected. The races where every system is being asked to work at the edge. That is the true test of a Formula One car. Not whether it can be fast for one lap. Whether it can stay alive while being fast. And this is where reliability becomes more than engineering. It becomes trust. A driver needs to believe that when he commits to a stint, the car will be there at the end of it. He needs to believe that when the team asks him to push, the machine can take it. He needs to believe that when the race opens up, the result will not disappear because something inside the car cannot survive the pressure. If that belief weakens, everything changes. George Russell will feel it differently from Kimi Antonelli. Russell has experience. He understands how seasons can be shaped by small losses. He knows that a retirement is not just a zero on the day. It can become the missing result at the end of the year. He knows that fourth place on a difficult Sunday can be more valuable than it looks, because championships are built from races where the car simply keeps going. So when a Mercedes reliability problem takes away a finish, Russell understands the cost immediately. It is not emotional. It is mathematical. Points lost do not come back. Momentum lost has to be rebuilt. And rivals do not care whether the failure was unlucky. They only care that Mercedes gave them an opening. For Antonelli, the damage is different, but just as serious. He is still building his identity at the front of Formula One. Every race is a statement. Every finish gives him experience. Every clean Grand Prix strengthens the argument that he belongs in the biggest fights. When a mechanical issue removes him from contention, it does not only steal points. It steals development. It steals proof. It steals the chance to show how he handles the final phase of a race, how he manages pressure, how he defends, how he attacks, how he turns pace into a result. That is why reliability problems can be especially cruel to a younger driver. They interrupt the process of becoming undeniable. And Mercedes cannot afford that. Because the team does not only need Antonelli to be fast. It needs him to believe that his speed will be rewarded. It needs him to climb into the car thinking about the race ahead, not the failure behind. That is why very painful reliability problems are never just technical. They become emotional. A driver who has been let down by the car remembers the feeling. The radio call. The loss of power. The strange vibration. The temperature warning. The moment the team says there is a problem. The moment the race stops being a fight and becomes a rescue mission. That memory stays. And the next time the car feels slightly unusual, it can return. Will it happen again? That question is deadly at the front of Formula One. Because the margins are too small for doubt. A driver needs a clean mind to fight. He cannot waste mental energy wondering whether the car is hiding another problem. He cannot attack a rival fully if part of him is listening for a failure. He cannot drive with maximum confidence if the machine has recently taken a result away for reasons outside his control. That is how reliability becomes performance. Not directly on the stopwatch at first, but through confidence, through decision-making, through how aggressively the driver pushes, through how much margin the team adds, through whether strategy becomes attack or protection. That is the trap Mercedes now has to escape. If they push the car hard, they risk more reliability pain. If they protect the car too much, they risk losing pace. And in a title fight, both outcomes can hurt you. That is why the team's conclusions matter so much. Mercedes revealing conclusions after Costly did not finish his sounds positive, because at least it means they have looked at the problem and found answers. Confusion is worse than diagnosis. A team that does not know why a car failed cannot truly reassure its drivers. But conclusions are not the same as control. That is the difference. A conclusion explains the past. Control protects the future. Mercedes now has to prove it has both. It has to show that the failures were understood, but also that the car can run cleanly again and again. It has to show Russell and Antonelli that the painful problems are not waiting to return. It has to show rivals that the weakness has been closed. Because rivals are watching. Ferrari will watch. Red Bull will watch. McLaren will watch. Every team fighting Mercedes will watch, because reliability problems are not private once they cost races. A rival does not need to know the exact failed component to attack the situation. They only need to know Mercedes has been vulnerable. They only need to see costly retirements. They only need to hear the words very painful reliability problems. They only need to believe that if they keep the pressure high, Mercedes may be forced into a mistake, a compromise, or another failure. That belief is powerful. It changes how rivals race. A rival strategist may push Mercedes into longer stints, hoping the car runs hotter or harder. A driver may keep pressure on Russell or Antonelli, forcing them to use more tires, more energy, more brakes. A team may choose aggression because they believe Mercedes cannot afford a calm, controlled race. That is how reliability problems become tactical vulnerabilities. The car may fail once in the garage, but the fear of failure can affect every decision afterward. Mercedes knows this. That is why the next phase has to be ruthless. They need to examine whether the failures were truly separate, or whether they shared a hidden theme. They need to understand whether the car's operating window is too narrow. They need to know whether heat, vibration, packaging, power unit stress, or aggressive performance targets are exposing weak points when the car is pushed in race conditions. The source does not provide the exact mechanical explanation, so the responsible story cannot claim a specific part is destroying the car. But the wider picture is clear. Mercedes has been forced to confront reliability as a serious championship issue. And that is enough to create pressure. Because in Formula One, the exact cause matters to engineers. But the consequence matters to everyone. The consequence is simple. The drivers lose points. The team loses momentum. Rivals gain belief. And the car's reputation changes. That last part is dangerous. A car can become known for something. Stable. Nervous. Fast in qualifying. Strong on tires. Weak in traffic. Difficult in dirty air. Reliable. Fragile. Once people start describing a car as fragile, every weekend becomes a public examination. A small garage delay gets noticed. A changed component becomes a talking point. A cautious radio message sounds suspicious. A driver lifting slightly becomes a question. A team saying everything is fine becomes something people test against the next result. Mercedes cannot let that happen. They cannot allow their car to become defined by reliability anxiety. Because if that label sticks, it affects more than public perception. It affects internal pressure. Mechanics feel the weight. Engineers become defensive. Drivers become more sensitive. Leadership has to answer the same question again and again. Is the car fixed? And every time that question is asked, it reminds everyone of the failures. That is why Mercedes needs clean races now. Not just one. Several. One clean race can be dismissed as relief. Several clean races become evidence. Evidence that the conclusions were correct. Evidence that the fixes worked. Evidence that Russell and Antonelli can trust the machine. Evidence that Mercedes can convert pace into points again. And this is the first major lesson of the story. Mercedes' car is not destroying itself because it lacks ambition. It may be destroying its own results because Formula One ambition always lives dangerously close to the edge. Every team wants a lighter part, a tighter package, a more aggressive cooling solution, a more efficient aerodynamic shape, a more powerful deployment, a more extreme setup, more performance, always more. But every gain has a cost somewhere. Heat, stress, vibration, wear, reduced margin, more sensitivity. And if the balance is wrong, the car can become fast enough to promise results, but fragile enough to lose them. That is the nightmare zone. Fast enough to give hope, fragile enough to break that hope. Mercedes must make sure it is not living there. Because a championship car cannot only be brilliant in flashes. It has to be dependable when the pressure rises. It has to protect points on bad days. It has to let the drivers finish races even when the weekend is not perfect. A title fight is not a highlight reel. It is a long test of survival. And reliability is the part of survival people sometimes forget until it fails. That is why this story should scare Mercedes. Not because the team cannot solve problems. Mercedes can solve problems. The danger is that every reliability issue costs real championship currency before the solution arrives. A retirement cannot be repaired after the race. A lost podium cannot be recovered on Monday. A missed points finish cannot be explained back into the standings. The car either finishes, or it does not. That is the brutal simplicity underneath all the engineering complexity. And that is why Russell and Antonelli need the same thing now. Certainty. Not hope. Not theory. Not a statement saying the team has learned lessons. Certainty. The kind that comes from a car completing race distance without drama. The kind that comes from engineers speaking with confidence because the data is clean. The kind that comes from a driver pushing hard and feeling no sign that the machine is close to giving up. That is what rebuilds trust. Because the next race is not only about pace. It is about whether Mercedes can make reliability boring again. And boring reliability is one of the most powerful weapons in Formula One. A boringly reliable car lets drivers attack. A boringly reliable car makes strategy aggressive. A boringly reliable car keeps rivals under pressure because they know Mercedes will still be there at the end. That is what Mercedes needs to become again. A team that finishes so consistently that reliability stops being a story. Until then, the question will follow them. Can the car survive? And as long as that question exists, Mercedes is fighting two battles. One against rivals. And one against the machine it built.